Now, I'm what you might call a ghost. I have been since 1928. Thank you very much. Or a poltergeist if you want to get technical about it. But not destructive, oh no sir. I'm building me a rock house right here in East Texas where them witches burnt my great-granddaddy's house. My great-granddaddy's wooden house. This stone house is my tombstone. Ain't nobody alive in it but me. It stands above my grave. This young feller, he come out from New York City to find out my story, and here's part of what I told him. Some highfalutin oil company geologist got to my granddaughter at a fancy party there in town and told her she'd be rich if she talked me into the signing the lease for the mineral rights. She convinced her mama, and even though I ain't heard nothing from neither one of them for the better part of 2 years, they started riding out all the way out to the farm from town every Sunday, near 8 miles. Now, that was a lot further for motor cars. You know, New York City boy like you, who thinks a long walk is down to the corner for the newspaper, an 8-mile buggy ride is a long ways. I ain't saying it wasn't a long way back in the day, but then we didn't know no better. Anyways, when them women got the oil fever, they got to looking at the half of the farm on the other side of the creek where the old growth forest is, and the greed just sunk right into them. All the neighbors are selling their mineral rights, grandfather. Come the drumbeat, week after week. Papa, all the neighbors are selling their timber to be clear cut. Don't fret over trees, Papa. They're just plants. They'll grow back, she'd say. Yeah, maybe someday after we're all dead and gone. Well, dead anyways. Now, I ain't a stupid man. Back in them days, I washed my pennies, I had to, and watched for ways to make more. Another mule would have helped, maybe a hired man now that I was 70 years old and slowed down some, but I watched my neighbors sell their oil rights. The drillers would swoop in, cut roads through the trees, spill drilling mud and chemicals and waste oil all over the ground, kill every good plant and let weeds come back up instead. Now the owner, he'd get a few $1,000s, maybe build him a house, maybe buy his wife something purty. But sooner or later, he was right back to where he was before. A dirt farmer scratching on ugly, torn up, no good land. Them scars ain't never healed. I owe the land more than that. And then what sold their timber was worse off yet. I don't know if you ever seen clear-cut land, boy, but it don't look like nothing more than an old mangy dog that mean boys has got hold of and shaved. Sorrier than a drowned cat. Now, I will grant you the trees has come back on my neighbor's land, but spindly shadows of their ancestors 90 years ago, harvested and harvested again for pulp every decade or two, all the stumps just left to rot. So walking through the woods ain't walking through the woods no more. It's climbing over one old stump after another. But my old growth trees is still there. And now even the 60 acres I was farming when they killed me, Has 87-year-old trees on them. I'm right proud of that. Grand old trees that's home to birds and deer and foxes and coyotes. No Texas cougars yet, but good Lord willing, someday we'll see them back again. Anyways, the very next time the girls come out from town, my granddaughter's husband, the banker boy with them, as soon as they settled on the porch of the old frame house that stood right here where I'm building my new stone house now, with lemonade, nice and cold, with real ice straight from my ice house, they started in on me. Papa, we feel that, and Grandfather, it would be in your best interest if... Criminy, the airs they did put on. Papa, Grandfather, I don't know where they got coming up with that, but it weren't for me or the missus. And that no-count banker boy spouting on about investment opportunities and return on investment, blah, blah, blah. About how I could get electricity and indoor plumbing and be just dandy, modern, and comfortable. Made me right sick at my stomach. I finally stood up and I told him, now, y'all had your fine say, and I do appreciate your opinions, but it's time for you to listen to me, because I'm the one with the say-so. Ain't nobody gonna drill on my land. Ain't nobody gonna cut my timber over my dead body. And I walked out into the trees, and I didn't come back to the house till they was long gone. Now you can bet I've wondered ever since if that's when they decided they was gonna do it, if they had already decided, or if they cooked it up after they left that day. However they done it, it was over my dead body, all right. Turns out my daughter and granddaughter was living way high on the hog in town. They was running up bills my granddaughter's husband couldn't pay, even with his fancy salary from the bank. He took to swindling widows and orphans and churches and anybody else that'd let him. The whole house of cards was just about to crash in around his ears. Listen, he found a way to lay on some cash quick. And getting rid of me was the way they figured to do it. When they come back the next Sunday, they all acted all sugar plum sweet and like nothing never happened the week before, only they brought along a dinner of my favorite fried chicken and lemonade and sweet buttermilk and rhubarb pie. I never will know exactly what bite had what poison in it, because it all tasted right good to me, but 10 minutes after I sat down to eat, my stomach tied up so tight that it doubled me right over. They sat there all cool and calm, just like y'all, cool as cucumbers, and watched me try to stand up. When I started to spew, they even scooched back so they wouldn't get splattered. They scooched back some more when I started to spew blood and keeled off my chair onto the kitchen floor. It took a long time to die, and it hurt real bad. It got harder and harder to breathe, and I fought harder and harder to keep on doing it till all of a sudden, breathing weren't hard no more. Nothing hurt. Nothing. Not even my lumbago. I'm standing right there, right side my own head, staring down at myself, all curled up in a ball. My poor dead face all wound up in a scream like my jaw was gonna tear off it. I felt right sorry for that poor old wore out thing lying wore out and twisted and dead. Well, the granddaughter, she stood up and she started giving orders about cleaning up the mess and hauling me to my bed. Sent her husband to town for the doctor with a story about how my poor old heart finally give out. And me standing there listening like I had no good sense, rooted to the floor like I was planted there already. Right after the banker was out the door, my daughter crossed the room for the mop and pail, and doggone if she didn't walk right through me. I meant to get out of the way, honest injun I did, but somehow my mind just weren't right. As if I just naturally expected her to see me and step around me, which of course she didn't. She walked right through me. She walked right through me. Now I didn't feel nothing but a push, like a breeze went by, but she sure did. She let out a squeal and went to blubbing about how somebody liked to pour ice water down her neck, and it being such a hot night and all. Well, the granddaughter, she come over and she grabbed her mama by the elbow like a toddler, and she give her a tongue lash like she was one too, but how she was just panicky and she better shut up before she had to give her a slap and give her something to cry about, because she better believe she would. Now, this might sound funny to hear, because it sure does sound funny to say, but hearing her talk to her own mama that way kind of tore something loose in me. You'd think getting killed with poison might have done it, but you'd be wrong. Hearing that girl sass her mama was my last straw. Now I never did hold with slapping a child, though maybe if I hadn't spared the rod so much with my daughter, she wouldn't have got spoiled so bad, and I might have stayed alive a few years more. And I probably wouldn't be here talking to you right now. I never had lifted a hand to my granddaughter in all her born days, but somehow something snapped and I hauled back and I slapped her face. Hard. Didn't hurt me, but by gum, she sure enough felt it. Her head snapped around and she spun back all wild-eyed and she backhanded her mama, who was bawling too hard to know what was going on. Probably she thought somehow her mama had managed to smack her one, but no, it was me. So I did it again. And again. And now I was starting to enjoy myself just a little because I finally spoke up. Ever since you was little, I know you was evil. You was an evil, hateful, spiteful child, and now you've grown into a greedy, money-grabbing monster, and you have killed me. May God damn you to eternal hell. She heard me, sure enough. She spun around like a top, looking around the room, and looked down at my body, looking for where the voice was coming from. Well, sir, that weren't where I was no more. So just to make a point, I walked up and I give her a good hard shove that sent her sprawling backwards right on that part of her that should have been paddled when she was little. She scrambled up and backed right out the kitchen door, screaming like a banshee, and she ran off out of the lights.